Hey, good morning to everybody. It's Daryl P here, aka Artist in Recovery, and once again I'm coming to you from my bike ride. There's my baby right there. And I'm going to talk about friends first of all today. And the reason I'm making this video is because for a long time I believed that people were my friend. People were trying to take me under their wing. Back when I was using, we had this term, what was it, ride or die. Loyalty, I got your back. And I remember getting all buzzed, and sitting around with buddies and like, dude, I'd do anything for you, man. I'd take a bullet for you, And I'm going to tell you a few stories on how I found out that not only was I blind to myself, and these people were my friends. They were setting me up to throw me to the wolves. Even worse. All right. Let me talk about friends first. Okay, I'm almost 60 years old. I'll be 60 next January, and I've been clean and sober since October 23rd of 2006, coming up on 19 years this October 23rd. And I really believe that one of the reasons I've been successful in recovery is because, especially in my older years, I'm independent. Friendship and having people around me and constantly being in somebody's company or even sex, I'll get to that in a second, it's just not that important to me anymore. It's less important as I get older. And those are the things that led me to use or led me to relapse a lot of times. So I really think that my success in recovery is due to being independent and not being needy for friends. Now, let me talk about the sex thing. In my older years, it's become, I've done a lot of things. I've done everything I wanted to do. I've been around the block. And what's important to me now is a relationship. I really just want to be with one woman that I love, and to me, that's the best. I know it sounds kind of corny, but that's the best relationship to me. It's somebody I would take a long time to get to know. That's the only way you could do it when you're in recovery. Because everybody tells you they're clean and sober when you're in recovery. Everybody tells you that, and very few people are. All right. Like I said, the person I'm telling you about, he was a black gentleman. I don't know if that makes any difference. I grew up in mainly a white town, and I was introduced to him through one of my friends from high school, and he was dealing. And this is the scenario. When I first met this guy, we kind of clicked as what I thought as friends. So the guy that was introduced me to him kind of was pushed to the side, and me and this guy, we'll call him Kenny. I thought we became good friends, and I would go to parties out here in the woods in Connecticut, the farm country, and me and Kenny would go, and we'd be very popular. I'd bring him along, and he was a dealer, so everybody would come running over at the parties, so I thought I was, king shit. I was bringing this guy along with me that everybody wanted to see, the party favor guy, and I really thought I was cool. And, not to mention the fact that he was a black guy and he was the only black guy there. So I was kind of hip and cool. I hate to say this, but it's the truth. It's really the way I used to look at things. I don't now, but that's the way I used to look at it then. Okay. We got even in a tighter, more business situation where he used to go down to New York City. And he'd go down by Yankee Stadium in the Bronx and purchase things for much cheaper. And there came a day when he asked me to go along with him. Now, I thought at the time, I was so blown away. I thought, he's taking me under his wing. He trusts me. This is a whole new step up. I really thought it was a big deal. And it wasn't. Okay, so we went down, and he's telling me all these rules. He actually yelled at me for wearing a T-shirt. He didn't want me to stick out. I was wearing this T-shirt that said Los Angeles on it, and for some reason he had a problem with that. So I was sitting there listening to all his rules like a rookie. Then he tells me, he says, Daryl, this is your one job. Okay, we're on our way to the Bronx. down 95 through Connecticut into New York. And he tells me, he says, we're going to stop and we're going to get big, like 24-ounce glasses, the big gulps of soda. And he says, after I come back, and I want you to hold on, it was probably like two Z's, about $1,000. Up here, it'd be worth a lot more. He says, I'm going to give it to you. Now, your job is just to hold on to it when we're driving back. And if I give you the signal, if I tell you now, do it, you take that and you open up the soda, you put the substance, and it was a pretty big chunk, into the 24-ounce, into the big gulp, shake it up, and throw it out the window if cops get behind us. If I tell you now, do it. This is your one job. You do this. So I was like, all right, man, I got you. You know, looking back, hearing myself say this, I was such an idiot. You know, I really thought, he's taking me under his wing. He's, showing me the ropes. You know, I'm what's it called? Gaming up, leveling. I was leveling up. I really thought I was leveling up. And nothing happened. And we didn't get caught or anything on the way back. And we made more subsequent trips. I actually went inside one time, and I was scared. I'll have to do a whole nother video telling you about what I saw inside. It was a lot like the movies, like New Jack City or whatever like that. I'm not even getting into that right now. And on another trip, we put the stuff, we either would get, they'd ask you when you were down there buying whether you want powder or rock. It was the same price, about $500 a Z. And this time we went down and got rock. And we put it in the air cleaner on the way back. I thought it was going to melt, but it didn't. Okay, so we went our separate ways. Actually, I wasn't going to include this in the video. I don't know if I want to say I kind of got my revenge, but I went back and we were partying for a while, like years later, and I brought a couple girls along, and the girls just used him for everything he had that night. And, and again, I thought I was getting over on him, because this is what I realized. If we got pulled over by the police coming back, I thought he was, he was bringing me along. I was leveling up and all that. If we got pulled over and he told me now, and I threw it in there, I would have followed his instructions and thrown it in and thrown it out the window. What would have happened when the cops came up to the window? What would have happened? Would he have said, yeah, oh, that's mine, I gave it to Daryl? Would he have been honest? No, of course not. He would have said, I had no idea Daryl had that on him. I would have, and I can't believe I didn't see this at the time. Or if I did see it in my subconscious, maybe I did see it and I just lied to myself because I thought it was, because of my addiction. I thought it was cool on some level. I don't know. I have a hard time believing that I didn't see how badly I was getting used. But if we got pulled over, I guarantee you, I bet everything, all the money I have in the world, he would have, because at that point he had no money on him. He spent the money. I had the drugs. I'm the one throwing it out the window. All he would have said is, I didn't know Daryl had that on him. And I'm the one, I looked up this morning. That's interstate narcotic trafficking coming from New York over the border back into Connecticut. It's 20 years minimum, and up to $1 million fine. 20 years, man, is what I don't know why I'm laughing. Yeah. So, I really thought, friends, when you're in this kind of thing, friends aren't friends. Drugs take over, whether you're just using a little bit or a lot or whatever. Once you start using, the drugs become more important than anything else. That's a fact. And if you don't believe that, you're lying to yourself. That's my opinion. Let me tell you this one other time really quick. It was one of the times after I got out of detox. I just did a video talking about detox, and this is a good example. I left with a woman, right? My car was out in the parking lot, and I left with this woman. And she was kind of cute and sexy. We were flirting in the rehab, in the detox before we left. As soon as we get out of the detox, and we're in my car going back to her city, which is, she wanted me to drop her off. she tells me that she's a lesbian, and her girlfriend's at home. You know, she's like, don't worry about my lover, my girlfriend. You know, she might be a little rude at first, and she's, oh, by the way, you know, I'm a lesbian. I'm not interested in guys. I was like, you know, so I kind of got played on that level. And so we get back to her place, and of course, the first thing I want to do is get high. So she says, all right. She says, well, my buddy needs a ride to go get something. He'll hook you up. He'll give you something for free, a couple bags for free. Dope. So I was like, okay, no problem. My car was beat up, you know, of course. It had been smashed on one side because I drove it on Zannies, and I smashed into a telephone pole. So I had one light out. And I go pick the guy up, and it's dark out now. We go, and we're driving to Hartford, you know, one of the biggest cities in Connecticut. I didn't know that's where we were going. I got one light out, got a car full of people, and he goes to these projects. He comes back out. Turns out he bought 2 bricks. That's a lot. It's like 200 something bags, I think. You know, and I look back at this again. You know, what would happen if we got pulled over? This guy would have dumped that in my car. It was my car. You know, again, I had a light out. I was driving through the city, which gave the cops a perfect excuse. Driving the wrong way. I didn't know the streets I was on. Wrong way on one-way streets. You know, it's not funny. It's not. Both these situations could have turned out so much worse. That's the reason I'm doing this video. Is, you know, I've learned. Looking back now, you know, I made some incredibly bad choices, some incredibly big mistakes, which could have turned out much worse. I could almost still be in jail right now. Right now. If I had done, you know, I wouldn't even be clean now. I would have been in jail. You know, I would have never hit that recovery date back in 2006. God knows where I'd be now. A lot of these people are dead. A lot of these people that I was hanging out with aren't even alive anymore. I'd say about 70% of them aren't even alive. The rest of them, a couple are clean, and the rest are in jail. And that's the God's honest truth. Just try to listen to what I'm telling you. You know, when you're using these substances, there's no such thing as friendship. Drugs. Don't believe it. Drugs become more important than anything else when you start messing with this stuff. Recovery is possible. Have a good Sunday.